This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome to Easy Eats. My name is Chef Yves Dechaine, and today we're in the Greener Villages Learning Kitchen with Brent Roy, General Manager at Speedway 660 out in Gary. Welcome, Brent.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm super excited to see what we're going to put together here.
So yeah, today we're going to put together, and I chose this recipe because race day, tailgating, good time, a nice queso to enjoy the race with. It's really simple, easy to do. You can do it on the barbecue, you can do it in the oven, you can do it in the RV, because I know that you guys have an RV park down there, and we'll talk about that. So yeah, so before we get started on this, tell us a little bit about 660 Speedway.
Well, it's been around for a little over 30 years now. It was built and opened in 1993, and then opened in 1994. We host bi-weekly racing, stock car racing, as well as other events there throughout the summer. We typically see over the course of the entire summer anywhere between 50 and 60,000 people walk through the gates over the course of the whole summer. And of course, it's always capped off by our pinnacle weekend, speed weekend on Labor Day weekend at the end of the summer to kind of put an exclamation point on a busy summer. And we have 3 days of racing, and we typically see almost 20,000 people on that day alone.
That day alone, wow.
Yeah, and it's capped off by the Yard Gear 250 presented by Valvoline Motor Oil. So it's a big deal.
Fantastic. Yeah. So the Speedway is not just a Speedway. Like I mentioned just earlier in the opening, that it's also a campground, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. We have almost 100 people that kind of stay there all year. And then on Speed Weekend alone, we see almost 500 campers show up for that weekend alone.
Racing. Tell us about different kinds. I know that you get the track and you're going around in circle, but let's talk about it. We had one of your racers on a while back, Luke McLaughlin.
Yes.
And a mechanic from Gary, and he races a certain class. But let's talk about that. What kind of classes do you run, and what are the differences in the classes, I guess?
So we run 4 classes all year long, 4 or 5. And so you get the entry-level division, which is the changing hands, thrift shop, 4-cylinder sharpshooter division. So it's front-wheel drive cars. They're fairly stock, which means they're fairly the same from what they are on the road. Obviously with some safety equipment put in them and your safety gear for your driver. The next division up is the SureFit Automotive bumper-to-bumper street stock division, which is what Luke participates in. And these would be like your quote-unquote classic stock cars.
Okay.
So cars kind of from yesteryear, the big old boxy steel body, have a frame sort of thing, V8 engines, rear-wheel drive, and those guys put on a really good show because they're not afraid to kind of wrinkle the fenders and get into each other and move each other out of the way. So it's a little bit more of a physical division, if you will, but the guys are also very respectful with it, but it puts on a heck of a show, and it's usually a fan favorite. Going up from there is the Sportsman division, the Summit Dodge Sportsman division, and they race a similar chassis to what the street stock does, but you take that big square body, I call it a bread box, and you throw it away, and then you put a fiberglass racing body on it, and you put a little more horsepower into it and a couple other things, and they're a little bit faster, and they put on a heck of a show as well. So we see those guys 5 or 6 times a year, and then they have a big show on Speed Weekend. And then our top division is our Remax East Coast Elite Pro Stock division. And these cars are purpose-built race cars. They start as just framing, tubing, steel tubing. They're cut and put together and welded by professionals. It's not usually something, you could, if you wanted to, put it together yourself, but they're professionally built race cars. Tolerances within like 1/16 of an inch, when you're measuring and checking tolerances on stuff and setting the car up, a 1/16 of an inch, which is like a little bit less than a millimeter, would be the difference between the car being really good and the car being really bad. So they're very precise race cars. They're a lot of fun, and they go around a 1/3 mile in about 13.5 seconds.
Wow.
So they're really boogieing. And they're a lot of fun to watch, especially when you get 20, 30 of them on there at one time. So for the Yard Gear 250 on Speed Weekend, we hope to see probably about 36 cars show up. go through the qualifying formats, and we'll start probably 28 for the race. So the guys will have to qualify in to even make the race and have their chance at winning $15,000 in that class.
Wow, that's fantastic. A lot of measurements and stuff like that.
Yes.
So you said before the show started that you wear a whole lot of hats, many hats. So as the racing judge, I guess, and things like that, you're going down and you're inspecting every car. Like, how strict are those regulations, I guess? And is it for safety, or is it just to make sure that the playing field is level, I guess, in all 4 classes of your races?
Right, so it's actually for both. So we have a tech director, Donnie Greer, who's been doing it for years and years, and he's got lots of experience with that, and the number one thing is always safety.
Yeah.
The number 2 thing, which is it's very close to safety, is to make sure everybody's on the same playing field. So you have a minimum weight, you have a certain amount of left side weight that you can carry with the car, because if you have all your weight on the left side of the car, you're going to be able to turn left better, and we only make left turns. So making sure the cars are within those categories and within those specifications, no different than if you were playing hockey and you had a pair of skates that were way lighter than your skates or my skates, right? You'd be able to skate down the rink a lot faster than the other person.
Absolutely,
and it wouldn't be fair. So we make sure that we try to reel in all those inconsistencies as best that we can.
So I guess, and I mean, you were talking about weight, so does that weight include the driver as well?
Yep, so we, just like the big trucks at the scales on the highway and such, we roll the cars into the technical inspection shed. They go on 4 scale pads, kind of like a supersized version of what you see in your bathroom scale. They hook to one box, and it reads all 4 corners, and it tells us this one's got 53% on the left side versus the right side, tells us the total weight, and we got to make sure that everybody's within the same tolerances so that it's not unfair to somebody versus somebody else. So Donnie does that, and then when the race is actually going, I kind of put on my my referee jersey, if you will, and make sure that nobody's I say the street stock division sometimes gets physical. You know, sometimes guys will push that over the edge, and you might have to call a penalty or a caution or something, and that's my job when the race is going.
Okay.
Make sure that everybody's playing fair.
What we'll do is we'll quickly go to break, and we'll come back, talk about queso, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the race park.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
I never thought I'd know that feeling. To be in love. Because for us, it was a crime. Someone had to respond to the tabloids. So I wrote letters, challenging every misconception about homosexuality. 9 homes, 7 dogs, 47 years together, and still not spouses under the law. So we took our fight to the Supreme Court.
Jim Egan and Jack Nesbitt await a verdict on their fight for spousal rights.
Hello. We lost our case, but we made a difference.
As a result of Jim Egan's case, the Supreme Court ruled that sexual orientation is protected under the Charter of Rights, a landmark victory for the LGBTQ2 community.
Welcome back to Easy Eats. Again, we're in the Greener Villages Learning Kitchen with Brent Roy, GM of Speedway Stick 60, and we're going to start making our queso fundido. So first thing we're going to do, seeing that we're not doing it on the barbecue or on a flat top, we're just going to get our pan to a medium-high heat, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil, right like that, and then we're just going to basically start frying up. For this recipe, I'm just going to use some chorizo sausage.
Okay. So what's chorizo sausage, and what makes that different from other sausage?
So chorizo is just basically the way you spice your sausage. So it's a Spanish or Mexican origin. So seeing that queso fundido is basically a Mexican type dish, we're going to use the appropriate sausage, but that doesn't mean that you can't use whatever you want or whatever you have in the fridge.
So if you have like hamburger or something, you can throw that in
exactly.
instead?
And if you don't eat beef or red meat, you can put chicken in it.
Okay.
If you lean towards a vegetarian or you don't want any meat, then you don't have to put any meat in this at all.
So you can make this without the meat at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome.
So what we're gonna
I
do,
like meat, so that's kind of right up my alley. But it's nice to know that you can do it without it, and it would still turn out just as good.
turn out just as good. You just have to add some different spices. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to saute this up a little bit.
Okay.
And while we're sauteing that up, what we're going to do is we're just going to grab a little bit of foil, and we're going to grab a dish right here that barbecue safe. So especially, again, when you're camping, this can just go over the fire into the barbecue.
Right.
You can just crumple it up, get rid of it.
Yeah, we don't really have a cooktop like this in a camper.
No,
or
you
or
don't.
at the track. It's usually a propane something. So having something like that you can put on a barbecue, or even like I've seen people put it over the campfire.
Yep.
Like that.
Well,
Sometimes
exactly.
Stuff tastes the best when you do it that way.
Well, that's exactly it. So this is what it's designed for. We're going to cheat a little bit by adding a little bit of liquid smoke after.
We won't tell anybody.
We won't. No, absolutely not. So as we're doing this and we're frying this up a little bit, you guys also have a campground I mentioned earlier. So the purpose of the campground, because I mean, the racing brings you, but what keeps them there?
Yeah, we're kind of a destination. So if you're going out that way, you're pretty much going to head there. And the campground really allows families to go there, bring their tent, bring their camper. Families can go there, spend the weekend. So it's like on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and everybody's there. It's really incredible to see all the kids playing with each other. You know, some people bring down a basketball net and they're playing basketball in places. And there's campfires everywhere, and there's people making stuff like this and bringing it around to different campsites and just sharing it and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun to see.
Do you see a lot of new racers, or is it the same faces that you see year in, year out?
So we get, with our introductory class, our Changing Hands Thrift Shop 4-cylinder division, we see a lot of racers that start. So we usually typically have 4 to 5 racers that start every year, and then they will progress up through the divisions from there. So on your higher classes, you'll see more guys that are, you know, every year you see them come back. They'll compete for the points championship. There's some guys that have been racing for 30, 40, almost 50 years.
Wow.
And then some guys that have been racing for 2 or 3 years, right? And that's what's really cool, is they get on the same racetrack together and they compete with each other. And just because you've been racing for 40 years doesn't give you an advantage over somebody who's just started either. So that's a lot of fun to see.
Cool. So our sausage is pretty much cooked right now. I'm just going to add a little bit of spice, so a little taco seasoning.
Okay.
So as you would, making tacos or fajitas, you just add that and season up your beef.
Awesome. Now, where do you get that? Can you put that together, or is that just like a...
You can put it together, or
Perfect.
you can go, you know, the taco kits that you get at the grocery
Yeah.
store, those envelopes you can buy at the grocery store, or you can make your own.
Perfect.
Works so great. So now that's cooked. I'm just going to pop that right into the pan just like
Fantastic.
this.
Okay.
And then we're going to add some onions to the pan as well.
And why don't you get a clean pan?
Why don't I get a clean pan?
Yeah.
Because I want all that flavor. So that's called the fond. Fond is bottom in French, and we just want to get all these flavors. We don't want to lose any flavors.
Oh, so it's coming up off there now.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So while that's cooking right like that, and I'm just going to add a little bit of liquid smoke.
Okay.
Just like this, just to bring it out. And then while we're doing this, I'm going to show you how to, I get asked a whole lot of questions on how do I cut a pepper.
Yes.
So I'm going to show you how I cut a pepper. So I take the top off like this, I'll take the bottom off like that, pop this out, that goes into the compost, and then I just run my knife right across while I cut the ribs. Now, if I was
Oh my gosh.
working at a fancy French restaurant or a higher level restaurant, I would bring this down and I would take all of this off, but that's just a waste.
Right.
And we're cooking it up, so I'm just going to grab it like that, and then skin side up. Because if you go this way and your knife isn't super sharp, well, then you kind of get like an accordion thing.
Okay.
So what I do is I go skin side up,
Yep.
and then I just kind of go along just like this,
Oh wow, that's super simple.
and then
You've done that before.
a couple times.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah. There we go, and just like this, and then we're just going to dice and we're going to saute all of this up together,
Okay.
just like that.
And you even use the tops and the bottoms too.
Well, yeah, no waste at all, right? And
Awesome.
once they're all cooked and they're in this queso, you're not really going to really worry about it, are
Right.
you? Here we go.
I've seen people cut the tops off or whatever, and sometimes leaves the bottom, but then they'll throw the top away or something. So it's good to know that you can use the whole thing.
Absolutely, you can definitely use the whole thing. So there we go, we got that in there. And then we'll mix that all up.
I know they can't smell this right now, but
Yeah.
it smells amazing.
It does, doesn't it? We have to come up with the smell-o-vision. We'll
Right.
be working on that. There we go. Get that going, and then we're going to add our jalapeno. And then the jalapeno is as much or as little as you want.
Right.
I left this.
So what if somebody doesn't like jalapeno at all?
Then we just don't add it.
Okay.
Or you can add pickled ones that are a little softer.
Oh,
so if
really?
you don't have fresh,
Yeah.
you could add the jar of pickled jalapenos if
Is
you'd
the
like.
pickled ones like hotter or are they less?
No, they're not. I mean, they're about the same.
About the
I
same?
just did the flavor profile. You'll get more of a zing
Oh, okay.
because they're pickled, right?
Right.
You can take the seeds in or off.
Yep.
I like leaving the seeds in. I
Right.
like this fondito to be super spicy.
Right.
Because the cheese will kind of tame it a little bit.
Gotcha.
And I really want to bring out the heat.
Gotcha.
So we'll give that a quick saute.
Awesome.
Just like this. So we're not looking to cook it and brown it too much. I just want to bring some color to the onions. We want to keep the peppers still pretty firm because we
Okay.
want that crunch.
Okay.
Kind of a different dimensions when you're eating into this dip.
Right.
There'll be some crunchy, some gooey,
Right.
some chewy bits.
Right.
It'll be really nice. So we're gonna grab that. I'm just gonna simply
Throw that in the
throw
mixture
that
too.
in the corner right there.
Okay.
Just like that. And then we're going to, I'm just gonna move this over
Yep.
here, just like this. And then we're just gonna simply add our cheeses.
Okay.
So I start off with about a pound or a half pound of any kind of mixed cheese you have.
Okay.
Today I've got farmer's cheese or marble cheese.
Yep.
That works out really well. You can
Okay.
use mozzarella,
Okay.
whatever's in the fridge. A lot of people will use feta cheese as well because
really?
it mimics the Mexican cheese, like
Yeah.
it's like a fresh cheese.
Okay.
So a lot of people will
My
use
wife
that.
will be really happy to hear that because she loves feta.
There you go, and then they'll give it more of the saltiness
Yep.
to it as
Yep.
well. I add a block of cream cheese.
Yes.
And then I'm going to add Velveeta. I've always
Okay.
liked Velveeta. It's
Yep.
one of those chemically cheese, but it's
Right.
ooey gooey.
Yeah.
If you don't have Velveeta, Cheese Whiz works.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's good to know.
Even if you don't have Velveeta, it's okay. It's whatever cheese you have
Right.
kicking around. So
Right.
it's a great way to use extra cheese.
Right. If you have
in
that
the
little
fridge.
piece of the block, just throw that in, or a little piece
Exactly.
in here, throw that in, sort of thing.
That's exactly
Awesome.
it. So we'll just toss this in just like that. And then to that, I'm just going to add a little bit more of that taco seasoning,
Oh, awesome.
right
Okay.
like that. We're going to fire in some salsa
Yes.
right in there, just like this.
Everybody loves salsa.
Absolutely.
And you can use that as like mild or hot or whatever
Mild,
you want,
hot,
right?
whatever you want. If
Okay.
you don't want any spice at all, you can
Yeah.
just use a can of diced tomatoes as well.
Oh, okay.
You just kind of want that tomato
Right.
mixture
so
in
if
there.
you don't have salsa, just look for the can of tomatoes in the pantry and throw that in there.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then we're going to add just a little bit of smoke. But again, you don't need this smoke.
Yeah.
And it's like 2 or 3 drops if you're doing it on the barbecue, if you're
Yeah.
doing it in your smoker, because you'll get that natural
Yeah.
smoke.
So you leave that out.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then to this, we're just going to add our house pepper mix. I make a house pepper mix. Like I said, I want to bring this spicy. So this is kind of like a cayenne pepper.
Okay.
But that's house made. So we're just going to add just a little bit, just like this. And
Okay.
then what I'm going to do is I want to make it even spicier. And I've got Spicy Boys smoked peach. I've been using this religiously. So we're just going to probably put in about a tablespoon of that.
Perfect.
So we're going to grab our foil. We're going to wrap it just like this. And then we're just going to slide it in the oven at 350 degrees for probably about 10-15 minutes or until the everything gets nice and gooey.
Awesome.
We'll do that now. And then when we come back from the break, we'll show you what this looks like and we'll give it a try.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Welcome back to Easy Eats. Again, we're in the Greener Villages Learning Kitchen with Brent Roy, a general manager of Speedway 660 out in Gary. And we've got our fondito out of the oven, or you would pull it out of the barbecue, and it kind of looks like this. It looks like a hot mess.
Right, it does.
But all we're going to do now is I'll get you to do that for us.
Sure.
We'll just, it's hot, so
Okay.
mix that all together until it looks like just a good dip. So you might have to press down a little bit,
Get
but
the
we
cheese
want
melted.
the cheese is melted, but it's
Yep.
still a little firm, so we
Okay.
want that. So it'll be ooey gooey. You just mix that up right like that, and then I'll get a few garnishes ready for it. So usually I add a little bit of green onion and some cilantro to it.
Okay.
So while you're mixing that up, we were saying that this is fun for the whole family, isn't it? So let's talk
Yeah.
about the park a little bit and what kind of other attractions or things that we have. I know racing's the mainstay, but
Yeah.
you must have other things for, I guess, the kids who don't do racing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, we have the availability to have many campers on site, and that in itself, like, I grew up going to campgrounds and you know, making lots of friends, lifelong friends that now, you know, the people that I grew up with are camping there with their kids and my kids. So it's like, for me specifically, like the second generation is there, you know, riding their bikes and crashing their bikes
Yeah.
and, you know, trying to find jumps to go off of and all that stuff. So, you know, at the end of the day, like, yeah, it's great for race fans and all that fun stuff. And
Well, let's talk about the season. So when do you open for the season, and and when's your last race?
yeah, for sure. So we open for the season usually in the middle of May. And then this coming weekend, it'll be the Schools Out Twin 40s. It'll be Kids Day at the racetrack. So we're going to have like a candy scramble for the kids and a bunch of other stuff. We're looking to get together a few bikes to donate for kids and stuff too. So that's this coming weekend on the 22nd of June. And then the weekend after that's one of our biggest events, which is called the Ricky Bobby 150. And that's usually lands on Canada Day weekend. So we have a nice fireworks display, and it's the big show for all the street stock guys like Luke. But we have a bunch of other races throughout the year. Obviously, our biggest event is Labor Day weekend, like I mentioned, with Yard Gear 250 on Sunday. And then we have a couple events in September as well. We cap off the championship points racing. And then we have the Demolition Derby event September 28th. And so that's going to be really cool. We're going to have like side-by-side racing, Demolition Derby. We're going to have what's called the Van Prix. So if you want to enter a minivan, it's only $100 to enter. You got to, you know, build and supply the van, and then we have 10-lap race of all the minivans, and you have to hit the jump at least once. So it's not a very high jump, but you got to hit the jump at least once in that 10 laps to win. So it'll be a really interesting, unique event. We haven't done that one before, so very, very interesting to see how that's going to play out.
Do you have, and I'm always curious, do you have one of those, just a streetcar race? So can I grab my Escort and
Yep.
or whatever or
Yep.
stuff like that and hit the track?
Yeah, so we, at the moment, don't. But
Okay.
the timing of this question is perfect because just 3 days ago, I was talking to my insurance guy, and we were discussing events, and that come up, and he said that we are good to do that. So I don't know if I'll be able to fit it in this year or not, but it is something that is, if we don't get it this year, we're definitely going to have it next year. So it's something that we're going to do.
Right on. And I guess one of my last questions here is, you got all kinds of racing. You got your demolition derbies, you got your all that stuff. Any plans on putting in a drag strip?
So there's some talk about that. There was some people that approached us about doing it. It's you know, still in a talk about phase, if you will, but it's not something we've ruled out. It's something that we definitely need some help from, you know, some outside sources and some funding, and you know, even the government and stuff like that. They've actually expressed potential interest, you know, to do that, because with that, it serves a few purposes. Obviously, it's a drag strip closer to southern New Brunswick. It's a way for people to get off the streets and be safer.
I was about to say that
Right.
because there's a big following. I said,
Yes.
because I'm from the area. I'm
Yes.
from Gary, and I know a lot of my neighbors and stuff like that. There's some really supercars in
Yep.
a lot of those garages.
Yep.
It'd be nice to have a nice, safe place
Right,
to do it.
100%. And you know, I'm not. We're not completely ruling out, you know, what happens at night on weekends when people get together, right? So you know, street racing can be an issue, and we want to make sure that you know, if it's possible, that we can create a way for people to do it safely. You know, that's what we want. And then the other one is that people don't really realize is a testing facility. There's a few electric car manufacturers and stuff in New Brunswick that are looking for places to test these things.
Oh, cool.
So there's availability for stuff like that too. So it's not only racing minded, but certainly that's the number one thing. And you know, we want to have a safe spot that everybody can go race, whether it's stock cars or, you know, if in the future we do end up with another avenue of racing there, whether it's go-karts or a drag strip or whatever it is. Something that somebody's you know, safe in doing so.
How do you find out when the races happen and all this stuff? So contact information. How do we get a hold of you? Do we just pick up the phone and call Brent?
A lot of people do that,
yeah.
but please don't do that because my phone bill is big enough as it is. But we have 14,000 followers on Facebook at Speedway 660.
Okay.
So we have a huge Facebook page, and that's really the number one place that a lot of people go
Right
for
on.
information now. So we create events and everything's centralized through Facebook. We also have a website, and we're rolling out a brand new website here in the next couple weeks. It has all of our schedule information on it. You can go on there and buy tickets ahead of time if you want, all that type of stuff. So www.speedway660.com, or if you're still old school and you want to pick up the phone, you can call 454-RACE, which is 454-7223, and then there's usually an information line that's on there as well. Right?
It seems like a really small community that's really, really supportive. I mean, you're competitive, but at the same time, you're family.
Right. So it's one of the places that you won't see it in any other sports. If I break a part and need a part to then go, you know, compete later on that night, my competitor will give me that part to fix my car to go compete against him, right?
So we're just gonna garnish it, and you can garnish with whatever you want. I like cilantro because it's nice and fresh.
Okay.
And I mean, you can't miss with green onions.
Of course.
And then you can use tortilla chips, pita chips, or anything like that. I kind of fire into the corner.
Okay.
So while I'm garnishing,
That way you don't have like a second plate. You're like doing this.
Exactly, and then you
Good
keep
idea.
your spoon to dip or whatever. So I guess the last thing we have to do is taste this.
Absolutely.
So tuck in,
Awesome.
grab a chip, and let me know what you think.
Awesome. Can't wait. Wow.
Thank you so much for letting us into your small world
Yeah, for sure.
and sharing this recipe with us.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
My name is Chase Nicholas. I am a Mi'kmaq hockey player. Growing up, I always remember my family talking about the Mi'kmaq as the creators of the game of hockey. In grade 7, I did research on Mi'kmaq hockey sticks as the first sticks of the NHL. I found a Mi'kmaq hockey stick made in 1917, the same year the NHL was formed. I was surprised to find out the very stick I was holding was made by my great-great-grandfather, Alexander Cope. In 1934, an elder known as Old Joe Cope wrote a letter to the Halifax Herald claiming the Mi'kmaq created hockey. I found out later that I am a direct descendant of Old Joe Cope. There was a time when Mi'kmaq children were torn from their families and not allowed to speak their language, losing their words and stories. But the stories are coming back to us. Stepping on the ice, I take pride knowing the roots of the game of hockey stem from my ancestors in the Mi'kmaq Nation.
I'm Craig Eagles. I have the honor to showcase New Brunswick's finest athletes and builders on Sports Inclusive. We take a look at their personal journey and how sports has impacted their lives. Sports Inclusive, only on Rogers TV.
This is Rogers TV.
Rising from the ashes, spreading my wings wide. No more holding back, I've got nothing to hide. If you cross me once, you will feel my thunder shower. So don't mess with me, 'cause I've got the power. I've got the power.
The Bachelorette,